Hello, everyone. I'm Laura Barat from laurabaratastrologer.com, and today I have a real treat for you. I am interviewing one of my friends and colleagues, Mirela Ngo. She has a YouTube channel called Chart Rectification, and her website is chartrectification.com. And she is a Cards of Truth reader and an astrologer. And today we're going to discuss the Cards of Truth with an example and give you a little idea about how they work and how they'll manifest in your life, all the different four suits. So I'm really excited to get started, and please tune in and watch, and we'll learn a lot about the Cards of Truth today. Thank you. Okay, Mirela, I'm going to start out with how you relate the cards to the planets in this new Cards of Truth system. And well, it's not new, but it's what we've been learning, or what I've been learning. I know you've been practicing for quite a while, and how those planets play into kind of our personality makeup, and then also, how you would predict with those planets and corresponding to the cards.
Hi, Laura. It's so nice seeing you. I know we've already kind of chit-chatted before, but it's still very nice seeing you. So thank you for inviting me. It's my first time when I actually go on somebody's channel and talk about something that I love.
Great.
So the Cards of Truth, for those of you that are new to them, there are so many different aspects that we can relate. And I thought I'd start with something from astrology, right? Since so many of you have astrology interest, and just kind of bring that into how we integrate it with the Cards of Truth, because the way I practice it and the way I learned from Ernst made a whole lot of sense, because I had already some astrology background. So even though if the Cards of Truth, we need to then integrate more numerology, more major arcana, portions of the nature, what each symbol, what each suit signifies. There's so much more. But once we get the planets kind of situated, everything, we already have a huge portion of what we use, right? So we know there are 7 visible planets, right, in the sky. Sun through Saturn. So Sun being the first in natural order, Moon, Mars the 3rd, Mercury the 4th, Jupiter the 5th, Venus the 6th, and Saturn the 7th. On top of that, something we work with a lot in astrology are the nodes of the moon, the north node being Rahu and the south node being Ketu.
Yes.
So being that we assign a specific kind of order to Sun through Saturn, 1 through 7, then we assign Rahu or North Node to number 8, the 8th card, and Ketu or the South Node of the Moon to the 9th card. Then we have a card that's called Ecliptic, which we don't necessarily associate to any planet or node or anything like that. It's the Ecliptic we associated with the 10th cusp sometime. And it's the path on which all the cards travel. Then, of course, I probably should have started with that. We have the birth card. We have 52 individual birth cards that not necessarily is associated to any planet, but it's an important card because it basically shows your makeup. So all these planets we're talking about, they are the makeup of what makes that birth card with all its strengths and weaknesses. So it's just something so individual that we don't even have like a planet assigned to it. And then, so after the 10th cusp or the ecliptic, we have Uranus, which is the Jack card in Cards of Truth. We have the Queen, which is related to Neptune, and then we have Pluto, which is the 13th card, and it's related to the King energy in the Cards of Truth. So in the Cards of Truth, we have the numbers, right? And we don't have number 1, we actually have an ace, and
Right.
it's in all four suits. So ace 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's Sun through Saturn. 8 is Rahu. 9 is Ketu. And then 11 is Uranus. Am I saying it wrong?
No, that's
12 and 13. So we have Neptune and Pluto, and those are the representations. And what's so cool about it, so let's say we have the Sun, and for major arcana, maybe we can touch on that in a different video, but that's the Sun and the Moon card. You know, so the ace and the representation of the Sun is like the first card that we see, and we're going to pull a chart maybe later on, a celebrity chart, to take a look at all of this. But the Sun card is something that somebody innately has, and isn't that something that we already relate to in astrology? I mean, we know Sun is the soul, is the inspiration, is the creativity, is what we're here to like do, who we are, right? It's an important planet for us, hugely important, the most important, because basically the Sun is the star in our solar system, and all planets get to revolve around it. So then that's the Sun card, and each of the 52 cards in the deck can fall on that card. But this is what that card shows us. Then where the Sun goes, the Sun's placement, and we're going to see that exemplified later, is, and I'm quoting from Ernst's material, just by the way, it's this is his, so I don't kind of make up my own words. So we're referring to his book. I know you're going to ask me what that book is.
Oh, no, I have it too. That's his.
Is it time and I have to remember.
Oh, the timing of the little book.
There you go.
Yeah.
He's titled them differently than I would have expected, but I love the material inside, and it makes so much sense. I'm sorry, we have a little truck going on here. So, okay, so the Sun's placement, the card where the Sun falls, it creates a foundation to the person's life and can also help point toward the career. This is a card that will serve to stabilize the individual's life and ultimately give meaning to it. So there you go. It's a lot like the Sun. Isn't that in astrology? That's kind of how we go about it. We look at the Sun, where the Sun is, and then we can tell if that person basically has the strength to shine through. What are they going to be inspired toward? What are they here to create their own little life, their own little kingdom, you know?
Right.
And then, of course, we look just like in astrology, we look basically where the Lord goes and what he's doing, because these planets, they are the consciousness. So we put them in astrology, we put them in a little sign with a little house. Those are the environments, the unconscious part. But planets are the ones that give consciousness, makes things happen, right? And that's kind of how it is in astrology. We look at where the Sun goes, we look at what sign what sign do they rule, and what house do they rule, and so forth. So it's really interesting how the two of them combine.
Can I just ask you, I want to ask you a couple questions. Okay, so there is the system you have 1 through 7, and then Rahu and Ketu is 7 or 8 and 9.
Yes.
And then you have the 3 outer planets, and of course the ecliptic. And so in this spread, which is called the birth spread or the queen spread, right?
Yes.
You actually have numbers of years, right, set to each card that you.
Yes. So the numbers of years associated to each card, kind of the natural time when that card has more importance. It has an importance every time, but it's 52 years.
Right. Yeah.
So the first 52 years in a person's life, this card, that's the Sun, and that's such an important point that you brought up. Thank you. It's 52 years. So in your first 52 years, you are all about the masculine energy of the Sun, the fiery energy of the Sun, going, doing, initiating, creating, right? And then the next 52 years of life gets assigned to the second card, which is the moon. And that's kind of when we start thinking more about, you know, what makes us happy, what we desire, how do we want to manage the rest of our lives, what's important, what connections do we have, and we'll see that more when we get into the moon card. And then the third 52 years of life, and most people don't pass that because that starts when you're 104. So if you have good genes, that's definitely there. It's the Mars card. So a lot of times, and some of these big names, that the actions that they have done in their first 52 years of life of Sun, or if there was a major public personality that has a wonderful moon card that has achieved so much, it's related to the ecliptic. So it's just out of ordinary. We're not talking about, you know, me, the little me walking the life, but we have personalities that their reputation and they go in history basically. And then some of these has to do with the later period. So let's say Mercury comes in between 156 and 200 something years old. So even if your body, your physical body, where your soul has embodied in this life journey, has long been gone, a lot of the stuff that you have maybe created and balanced in life can manifest.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
I think so. And then the next one is Jupiter. So even 250 to 300 years after you've been gone, more things can grow. Like, you know, that's where we come in with the ancestry. Jupiter represents children and wealth and gaining and goodness, right, in astrology. So, you know, if you do decide to leave something creative behind, not necessarily children, that can also be kind of bringing fulfillment and luck and gain to somebody in the next generations, especially if we can incorporate so much. Like Mercury and Jupiter, we know as far as Gemini techniques, they are the ones that manifest something. Well, we don't take that away as a rule just because we're putting it in cards of truth. So Mercury and Jupiter as like long periods in a person's life, even though most likely they happen after we're gone, they can still manifest some of the things. So if we lived, you know, a crappy life and we messed up some generations after us, then that's going to be the manifestation of what we've left behind. That's why it's important to care about the environment, about how we truly, you know, live this world. It's not just about me, you know, getting fed properly and love as much as I can and be as rich as I can. But that's kind of, hopefully I didn't make it too long, but it's an interesting way to look at things.
Really good. Yeah. Also, I wanted to ask you another question too is, you know, there are certain numbers, certain places that are a little more difficult, like 3, 5, and 7. And I know 3 is related to Mars, 5 is related to Jupiter, and 7 is related to Saturn. So I was just wondering, when I can understand the Mars and the Saturn being difficult, but the Jupiter kind of doesn't make sense because Jupiter is supposed to be the great benefic, but it's number 5.
It's not. That's so true. And then, you know, in the cards of truth, the 5th place is considered something that kind of passes through your hands, like something that gets averted in a way, right? And why is that? Because in astrology,
that you miss out on, something you missed out on.
Yes. So in astrology, that's true. Jupiter brings this stuff. It manifests. It's the utmost benefic. It's not an enemy to anyone. Also in astrology, the 5th house and anything we relate to that, the 5th house is Leo. It's a Dharma kind of house. The 5th placement is like also a Dharmic place, right? It's considered to be lucky and what you're inspired towards. So why does in cards of truth just Jupiter gets this bad rap? And I think it's because we have to look at what else 5 means. 5, it's it's instability. It's the number that goes between 4 and 6. So once we get into the numerology portion, we're going to see why to go from a security square, stability, into 6, which is fulfillment, which belongs to Venus. You have to have luck and grace from Jupiter, but what else do we need to do? We need to take not so much risks like we would do with Mars. We need to make sacrifices. We need to make choices between what's good and what's bad. We need to really weigh in, what are we willing to die for? You know, that's why it's like, you know, how do you want to grow your kingdom? Because I think, and that's the misconception in astrology too, it's like that marriage, you know, now you're married, 4th house, you have a 4 of hearts and cards of truth, everything, now you have your family, you're happy. No, that's when the struggles start, because now you get put to the test. And in cards of truth, number 5, the 5th position is such a testing position. So it's almost like the backside of what Jupiter is perceived at. And then we have to also think how much power there is in this Jupiter as an actual planet. Even though it's a personal friend of the Sun and of the Mars, and it's a friend or neutral toward everybody, Jupiter has huge magnetic powers as a planet. So if we think about astronomy wise, even though we relate it to the guru and the teacher and you know, something of grow because it's so large and heavy, there are huge magnetic forces attached to this planet. So some of these things that go toward it or gets attracted, they are not going to survive. And it has huge volcanoes on it and like instability. So I think that's where we have to take into consideration the lesser known aspects, just like the Sun. I mean, can you get really close to the Sun? No, that's why a planet is agitated, because it kind of gets burnt out. So I think that's where the Jupiter things are. But once we get to the Jupiter, yes, things can get averted. However, where the Jupiter goes indicates how they will understand the purpose of their life, and all the things are as they should be, especially when something in life appears to pass them by. It's like a judgment and justice in action. So it's such a beautiful thing. But yeah, 3, 5, and 7 would throw me off all the time.
Is number 5 kind of adapting, learning how to adapt, or?
It is adaptation, I think so. It also has to do with intelligence, because intelligence is like the 3rd, the intelligence to innately go for something, do something. But the 5th is the intelligence that we have to adapt with. Yeah, I would definitely say so. That's why I think, to me, 5 is one of the most important numbers, is the make it or break it. Are you going to make it to where you need to be or where you desire to be? Because in the end, we all want like love, right? And having that feeling that your needs have gotten met, that you have received back everything you deserve, that you only get from Venus. And the 6 number. So that is so true. Adaptability is a big word for that. Testing, crisis, sacrifices, things that you're willing to like near miss them. Like, are you having, let's say you have an odd number, and then we can touch more on that and numerical portion. But if you have an odd number on Jupiter or one of these 3, 5, 6, 7 cards, so on Mars, Jupiter, or Saturn, you have a harder time making the most of it. Is like, let's say somebody has a 2 of clubs on Jupiter. 2 of clubs is coming up with a lot of ideas, a lot of projects, something of that sort. And then most of those don't grow like Jupiterian into something bigger. They just kind of wash away. But what washes away? Because in the end, Jupiter is making you think what you want to let go of and do it with grace. Versus Saturn, when we have a 2 of hearts on Saturn, game over, because it's so difficult to have relationships, to stay in relationships, to have that, desire to connect with somebody. So it's delayed. So once we get to it, then finally it gets taken from us one way or another. But it's to teach us about the number 7, which is the normal limitations in life cycle.
Right.
Things that we have to separate from. So I think the beauty between the number 5 and this, all of them are beautiful. But the beauty before 5 and between 5 and 7 is 5 is what you need to figure out in order to allow things to grow the most they can. And you can't have it all. Some of things you have to let go of. Right. And 7 is the things that you really desire, but you have to, or you're connected to, you have to let your ego kind of dissolve and understand, you can't grow anymore. Hey, it's done. Number 6 is gone. We're at number 7. You have to go either change, retransform things, or just understand what's meant to no longer exist. That's why it's related to the death of
right. Right.
Yeah.
And I have another question about that too. With 3, 5, and 7, do face cards do well in those positions, or?
So yes, face cards are considered to be the Jack, Queen, and King. Mm-hmm. And those are the most powerful cards to have in any position, not just 3, 5, and 7.
Okay.
So they are considered to be good in every card because there are personalizations of 3 different trios. So like the Jack is the trio of Ace, 2, and 3. So in other words, the Jack is taken into consideration. If we relate that to planets, it takes things in that are Sun, Moon, and Mars, right?
Right.
I mean, the king, the queen in the kingdom, and the general. So it's really power to have them all as one card.
Right.
And then the queen is 4, 5, and 6. So that would be Mercury, Jupiter, and Venus. Boom, you have Mercury is considered to be a gentle planet, right? Mm-hmm. And especially when it's by itself. So when you have Mercury, Jupiter, and Venus, Mercury, Jupiter can manifest, Venus, they're all 3 gentle. So that's where the queen energy is pulling through, and it's doing well in every card because it's receptive energy and because it can manifest something that's more of a gentle. It's not like Neptune cannot deceive you. If you have it's really nice when you have one of these face cards on it. And the same with Kings, 7, 8, and 9. We have Kings, then you have Saturn, Rahu, and Ketu. And what's more important in this life other than create things and fight for things, enjoy them? More importantly, sooner or later, we have to let go of those things. And we have to figure out what are we here to do, ask the big questions, and then deal with the reality of life, which Saturn brings. So that's why King is huge on every, and it's very powerful on every card, but it's powerful for what he does. And King has got to deal with, do things what, that maybe the other face cards cannot do what a king does. The amount of sacrifice, the letting go, the biggest decisions that a king has got to do for the kingdom that maybe the other cards are not in charge with doing. So yeah, super powerful to have face cards. Even though powerful does not mean good, because it is good, but think about if you have a powerful king, but it's somehow afflicted. Mm-hmm. That means you have the power to do bad things, but you still have that power.
So it would be afflicted if you had afflicted planets in that card.
Yeah, so we would look at where...
or if its lord was afflicted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so big afflictions are brought by the nodes, to no surprise, by Pluto, which is the dissolver, and by Saturn. So the same things that are so powerful in the king, but a lot of people don't know when you're in a position of power. That's where you have to do the most sacrifices as well.
Oh, definitely. Absolutely.
Yeah, everybody does sacrifices, even the Jack, even the Queen. But I feel like Jack is so enthusiastic about the beginning portion. Then when we create something, we don't necessarily automatically look toward the ending. Who wants that? Like you give birth to a baby and you already think about the day when they'll die? Like, people don't do that.
Yeah.
It's the creation, the creative portion, right? And you enjoy the life with them, sustain them, mother them, whatever not. And then the king portions with the Pluto, Saturn, and the nodes that are the same, that can afflict something, because is we having to let go of something that was concrete at some time in our life.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yeah, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
It really gives a lot of much more information to a spread or to a birth chart.
I think so. When we break it down and we look at it through the astrology scope, I think it makes more sense. Would you like me to share maybe a chart so we can talk more directly?
Yeah. Sure.
Because I feel like I'm just talking a lot of theory that maybe doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Oh, I think you make great sense. You're doing great.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, here you go.
Ooh, so we're choosing Meghan Markle's chart for today, right?
Yep.
This is the Queen quadration that you talked about. So there is also a Jack and a King quadration that we don't necessarily look at, because the lifespan that we have is the longest. It's more important than we look at the creation. The creative portion is where we came from, which is the underlying and overlying card, and then what we're going to work, because basically in this embodiment we're like once away, poof, gone. So it doesn't make quite such an impact on our everyday life as far as manifesting everything.
I see what, yeah.
So I think, for the Queen quadration, the Jack quadration, the birth card would be a Queen of Clubs and a Queen of Spades for where somebody goes. But let's say for Meghan Markle, so her birth card is a 10 of Diamonds, one of the 52 birth cards. And then we look to the right here, that's her Sun card, Moon, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, Saturn. Then we have the North Node, Rahu, Ketu, the Ecliptic, which is huge. This is my birth card, by the way.
Oh, wow.
I know, right? And then we have Uranus. Do you say Uranus or Uranus?
I say Uranus.
Uranus, it is. I never know the correct way. I even tried to Google it, and it turns out everybody's confused about it.
Yeah, there's all different ways to say it.
Uranus, and then Neptune, and then here we go, Pluto. So what happens is we have these planets, embodied planets, and the faraway planets that we talked about, the outer planets. But then each one, and this is the coolest thing, and that's why I think Ernst is a genius.
Yeah, definitely.
He's taking this birth card system, and then he's looked at where the planets were in a transit. And then that's where astrology comes in. So basically for her Sun, we know the Sun only rules one sign, Leo. So for her, she had Sun, Mercury, and Rahu in Leo when she was born. That's her natal chart, her natal promise. Then she had Mars and the ascendant in Cancer, because Moon rules Cancer. Mm-hmm. Then the rest of the 5 planets are actually, not that they're not as important, but what makes us really is the Sun and the Moon card and where they go. It's those and the birth card are so important fundamentally of who we are, our personality, and what makes us us.
Yeah.
And then we know the rest of them, like Mars rules 2 planets, everybody else rules 2 signs. So for her, between the Martian signs, which are Aries and Scorpio, she had Uranus, the 10th cusp, which is the ecliptic, and the 5th cusp in some of those houses. So in Cards of Truth, we take the conjunction, basically.
Yeah.
So this is kind of how we look at everything else. And then we see where the nodes were. We're seeing where all these planets are going to show up and, you know, bring their consciousness. And for her, there are people that don't necessarily have a little planet or a node in every single, you know,
Right.
card. So there could be cases where Mars is not the lord of much. Does that make Mars less important in our life? No. It's still going to be important, especially, let's say, maybe it falls with one of the action houses, you know, 1, 4, 7, and 10, but maybe there are not so many planets to bring it to consciousness. So maybe you have less of things manifesting, but it doesn't make it less important, I don't think.
Right.
So for her,
I was just going to say here, it's kind of nice. She has a 5 of hearts in the number 5 position.
Oh yeah.
So that's us. That's
beneficial. We were talking about, you know, number 3, 5, and 7. So when you have a similar number to the number of the card, that vibrates twice. Basically, you have like two different things confluencing you to the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So it's giving it more, I wouldn't say more power, but more vibration. It's just, you would start paying attention when you see a 2 on a 2, a 5 on a 5, a 7 on a 7, like having a 7 on Saturn, it's something nice. So I automatically start paying attention to those things. And then there are a little bit more difficulties when you have aces tend to do well on mostly everything, because it's just what the potential to give birth to something. So, but if you have no face cards and no aces, and you have a 2 on a 5 position, or let's say a 4 on a 3 position, so any odd number in an even spot and the other way around, that starts creating a lack of balance of some kind. And the balance comes based on what that planet represents. So for her, let's talk about the moon. So moon is something we automatically feel comfortable with. Okay, and then where moon placement is, says to pay particular attention to the card that the moon is placed in, which represents a very strong quality of the person. This is the card that the individual will use to manage their life. It's the Emperor and Empress in action as they manage their lives. So let's break that down. Her moon card is absolutely beautiful. It's an Ace of Hearts. So what does she feel comfortable with? She feels comfortable with situations in which that show a new beginning of love of some kind, new connection. So this is a person that's looking forward to connect to others, to give birth to something, and to not necessarily to a child, but she's known for her charity projects and for something that she wants to initiate. She feels comfortable in those situations where she initiates. So she's probably excited about, you know, eating something new or drinking something new, because hearts are also nourishment. Moon also has that watery quality, and it has to do with our nutrition and stuff and our needs, right? So this is her comfort zone. But then where is the moon? For her, moon goes in the Venus card. Moon is lucky because moon does not actually have any sort of natural enemies. It's the only planet that nobody hates on. They are either friendly or neutral toward her. With that being said, Saturn is the only planet that can bring some starvation there. Saturn has that capacity to starve any planet there in the same card with. So for that purpose, her moon is both delighted and starved. And remember what moon was showing, the place where it's at, it represents a very strong quality of that person and how they manage their lives. Okay, so the ruler of her moon now becomes Venus, which is the 3 of Clubs. 3 of Clubs is about expansion of ideas. 3 of Clubs is about being witty with how you say, how you go about things. You can be somewhat argumentative if it's afflicted. Okay, so that's her Venus card. And Venus has a 3 on it. The 6th card has number 3 in it. So that makes somebody passionate in the way they maybe talk, right? Because 3rd has to do with the 3rd, you know, the way, the hobbies that she has, the way she communicates to others, maybe a little bubblicious in a way. So she can come out across and expose the points that maybe doesn't make her the most popular, but she does it because intuitively that's who she is. So it's not the easiest position on Venus.
And I just want to ask you really quickly, isn't the 3 of Clubs is also testing our ideas, right? Going out.
And then she has this capacity of initiating things. And what do we know about her? She gets involved with all these charity, and she's very vocal about how she wants fairness in the world. Well, Venus rules this. And even though it's not an easy card on Venus, Venus is what's fair for all. She wants to help women. She wants to advocate, to be a voice for them. I mean, this is 3 of Clubs in action. She's not afraid of poverty and taboo kind of subjects, because we can see there is a little starvation afflicted. Does that always go for her or sometimes go against her? It does go against her sometimes. But that's the beauty of it. But I mean, that's how she goes about. She wants to bring new love for everybody. She's just like lovable like that, you know, because this Ace of Hearts is something that's who she is, right? It's
right.
Yes.
It was funny too, because I read about her when they got married at their wedding ceremony. She had the vows changed where you say, I will obey, you know, she will obey her husband. She had that taken out.
Okay.
And that really makes sense with the 3 of Clubs in the Venus card. You know,
she's opinionated. 3 of Clubs is being opinionated.
Yes. And then I just saw, it's so funny we're talking about her, because I just saw another video on her when she was a child, or like, I don't know, 12 or 13 or something like that, where she wrote a letter to some company, Procter and Gamble, I want to say, or some company that made a sexist commercial, you know, said American women need to fight pots and pans.
Yes, she wanted them to change the verbiage. And so she went to the governor. She sent letters to Procter and Gamble, to the governor, and then it happened. So she was surprised herself of the power of mind.
Right.
And the power of the mind is your moon, but also what you're set up to do, like who you innately are. Check this out. It's an 8 of spade. An 8 of spade, innately, somebody may feel suppressed in a way, because 8 of spade in cards of truth is the jail card. But in what context? Is 8 has got to do with Rahu. And 8 we're covering more than I wanted to, but it has to do with the Chariot in our major arcana.
Right.
So now you have the mind, which is spade, and you have the Chariot. And then you have Rahu, which is unpredictable, or something we can bring us great happiness if we're trying it. So you have all of those combined in a card where you have a lot of ideas that you don't necessarily know how to put in practice, or you are in a place where you can't necessarily work on them. So all of this happening in a Sun card, which is Sun is a position of power. So for her, she's somebody that's very strong, but she can't quite get on the outside all the things she would want. So she has her mind continuously working. Her wheels are turning, you know, and we don't even see a fraction of this publicly, because she has a lot going on there. And some of it has to do with Rahu, which is the full card. It's, you know, showing love to everybody. So I think a portion of it is suppressed. So when she went in and she wanted to say something for women, guess what? Queens are the women. So
Right.
she wanted to talk, she was inspired about their image, the second house. But again, she probably was very frustrated to have had to write that letter. And that is Eight of Spades. It's a card of frustration because you want to change things, but you may not necessarily have the power to change, like get the wheels turning, so to speak.
I see. Is it a card of kind of withdrawing in yourself, or?
It is. It's a card where you have so many ideas and you want to know, exactly why things haven't worked out, because it comes after a Seven of Spades. And Seven of Spades, it's
Yeah.
the tower falling apart, right?
Right.
So this is about necessity. This is why things literally didn't work out. And so she has a good idea. Things go to crap and they don't work out because of this. And then she has this sparkling idea about why maybe she doesn't really understand all, because that's how Rahu is. You don't understand the connotations of everything. But you just know you have this desire to go ahead and try it. And so all of the sudden, yes. And I think to answer your question, you have ideas that you don't necessarily, you just have more ideas than the ones that you actually are going to see into practice. So with this Eight of Spades being on a Sun card and her, marrying a royal, she will behind scene be like the brain to a lot of projects that she herself cannot put into motion, but she can plant that seed of what Sun is, creating something,
I do.
Because in being royalty, you have to act in a certain way. There's so many rules. So isn't that like feeling caged? That's the jail card. I mean, people think you're royalty, but as a royalty, there is a code that you have to follow. I'm sure she sometimes feels like, oh my God, I'm only wanting to do good. Why am I stopped?
Right. Wow. That's so interesting the way that works. What about the K2 card of Seven of Clubs?
Let's take a look. So K2 card shows something where, and I'm going to put my little notes here so I can quote from them. So K2 card for Ernst represent that which the individual must resolve and perfect, upon which they become capable of experience the deepest levels of connectivity and happiness. If you have a 3, 5, or 7 there, indicates great difficulty due to the need to resolve some difficult situations. Okay, that's the K2 card. For her is a 7 of club. Then where K2 goes is K2. Where K2 falls is a card which the individual uses very readily. It's a dependent fallback card that they fall into anytime life is hard and confusing, as well as a card they rely on each and every day in their life. This card, however, is not used perfectly or in balance. It's used excessively and with some imbalance. As a result, it creates huge problems over time. Eventually, this card will fail the individual, at which point they will no longer depend on it. At this point, the opportunity arises to use the card in a very healthy and balanced fashion, at which point it becomes as the card that can lead the individual to a deep and fulfilling process, happiness. That's a lot of words. So basically what we're saying here is this 7 of clubs. 7 of clubs, again, falling of a tower, it's a black 7. It belongs to Saturn.
Yep.
Clubs is all about ideas and projects. So what happens is the person kind of gets used to things not working out. They have this innate they fall back in and they're like, okay, well, nothing is perfect. I kind of knew it won't work out. This is a theory. that we can't get to an end, or this is a project that maybe we won't finalize, or oh, I'm so disappointed with what people talk and say, because that's like clubbiness, right? It makes or 7 of clubs can also mean, clubs is air, 7 is traveling from 1st to 7, which is the furthest away house, can also mean air travel. So somebody that's used to like go from idea to idea so very fast, it's like the end is where the beginning is, something that I was talking about in the beginning, where we don't want to hear, especially in the sun portion, the creation. So that's something she feels comfortable with.
I see. Okay.
And where she's used that, she's used to using that in her Saturn card around your 7th and 8th. So Saturn card being a 3, it's not a bad card on Saturn.
Right.
3 of Spades is that little soldier that has to do things on their own because there is not much support and guidance they get from somebody. It's a little risk they have to take on their own. And then for her, she is so sure that her little risk is not working out. She's sure, this is kind of her security paradigm, right? And what are those? Those are her partnerships and her relationships. She's probably 8th house, so she's probably somebody that fears other people cheating on her or doing some, or the relationships falling apart.
Yeah.
Personal level. But then what life teaches her is to look more into the 9 of Hearts, where she just believes in that divine love, that showing connective, show that everybody, regardless of the race, of the gender, they're united. That's the beauty of the 9 of Hearts. And that is the Rahu that she has to learn, even though it's afflicting her, but she has to learn to get out of the way or find ways to bring, fulfill necessities for other people that maybe don't have the right to clean water, 2nd house stuff, right? They don't have enough money, poverty, right, something like that. So her habits are she can get very kind of negative in her thought. It's like, well, how am I going to make these changes on my own? And what is happening, part of her lesson in this life, and she actually did, she stepped into royalty. She's a woman, a king of diamond. That's the royal woman, right? Yeah, because her Venus is her Gemini Karaka, and it falls into that. So she's into she stepped into a role that I don't think she's ever even dreamt about. Maybe as growing up, she might have liked him or thought she was hot or what, not growing up, but like later on as she was an adult and stuff. But I don't think she thought, she can get to that point, because she just feels very independent. Like the 3 of Spades is the independent card. And what does Saturn does? Well, Saturn, we can now talk about Saturn. The Saturn card is showing us that where the individual has the least of, and which will eventually always be destroyed. So if you have a 3 there, like she does, it indicates troubles that are readily destroyed when they come. So this is her Saturn. So her independent woman status has been destroyed. I mean, she's not an independent woman. In fact, she's very much kept under royalty. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
And then where Saturn goes, and for her, Saturn goes in the Venus card, right? Yeah. So it reveals where life's events come together in such a way as to create impossible situations that leave no chance for ego fulfillment, upon which ego dependencies have to be destroyed. So it's the house, it's the card where the house of God comes tumbling down and where death awaits. So, okay, so now gets a little rough here, because even though her Saturn is not necessarily a bad card, eventually she has to kind of let go of the independence. And where will that show? It will show in the Venus card.
Yeah.
So now you've let go of your independence, and you are very talkative, and you express yourself through ideas and projects and all that. But
I can see that so much. And,
you can?
Yeah, and I mean, I don't really follow them that much,
Yeah.
but they're all over the news, and I can see how she let go of her independence, but not really. She does want to assert herself, but she can't because of being royalty.
Yeah, I mean, she does have the Martian energy. She has two different trees in her chart. So this is somebody, like you said, that has that spunk, but is now having to keep it under, but she has the power, right? So she's in a position of power. It's just not a direct power. She still has to, figure things, another way to make things happen, because the 7 of Spades comes before this 8 of Spades. So even though she's a little locked currently, she's going to find another way to get those projects started. She has lots of potential to get beautiful things started.
Yeah.
For children, for the world, the 5th house, the 10th house. So that Martian energy has the capacity to start things. She's going to work really hard at it because she has a Queen of Spades on Uranus.
Oh, yeah.
So she still has to have a way to get this love across, to make changes and stuff like that. It's just won't be without like a sacrifice. But overall, having a 10 of Diamond, that means you're like gonna be rewarded for all of this.
Oh, nice. So what are the 10s? Are there new beginnings on a different level?
Yes. So, and 1-0 means you vibrate already on 2 digits. So basically, a whole cycle has completed from 1 to 9, from Sun to K2.
Right.
And now you are like on a little circle looking down. This is, to me, is 10 show like the final. You draw the line and you've seen what's going on. With 10s, you can either enjoy the rewards, or with 10s, more difficult 10s are like a 10 of Spades, especially if it's afflicted, because you still the rewards are there, but the rewards are in regards to Spades. And if it's afflicted, if you haven't used your Spades right, then you have a lot of bad luck at 10, and you have a lot of fears and wrong actions, and just being needy and just doing all the wrong things in life kind of tumble down. So the 10 comes and says, well, this is the rewards of everything you've been doing. Instead of working hard and keep a head straight, you've been doing all this nasty crap. So here comes the 10 of Spades. But if it's used right, it's like now all the hard work magically came to a realization. And I don't necessarily see, I think with 10s, you're right. I think they're the end of a cycle, but also the beginning. So it's very hard to say, because 10 per se, they don't start a new cycle. The 1 does, but 1 is part of the 10. So it's like an infinite kind of elliptic, is that how you say? So with 10, it won't be something like that. It will be something, you finished, you go. You just keep ascend, sort of speak, if we believe in the some of the things in astrology where it says soul doesn't travel like that. It travels in a kind of elliptic where you keep ascending. Nobody knows until when.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, and it's her diamond for her, so it's more, it all has to do with her material wealth. And
and then also the practicalities of like literally concrete things that get manifested. So having a 10 of diamonds anywhere in the spread basically makes us look at all the other diamonds, because it's the conclusion of all the other diamonds. So for her, she has beautiful diamonds. She has an ace of diamond, a queen of diamond, a 5, which twins are 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah.
And being the middle number, the 5 number is the most energized. And then she has a 9 of diamond on the Pluto. Well, what that can signify, that's the only number it's a good number because it's still the full card. It's being charitable and all that. But for some reason, every time she gives away a lot, it gets her really good. It's almost like maybe she feels like she needs to give out a lot. 9 of diamond is letting go of all the material that you have and being okay with it, and thinking you're going to be fine. But the problem is with Pluto, the last card, that's where the ego gets dissolved.
Right.
So no matter how much you give away from what you have, it's just not enough. So she's going to feel that in life. She's going to feel no matter how overfull she is with her fortune, and she keeps giving, it's not enough. And that's going to be part of her lesson to learn.
Oh, yeah. I can see
that. To not be so good in her, she needs to be good in her heart, but she has 2 red 9s that are going to teach her boundaries, basically. It's just like, okay, how much love can you give? How much money, how much charity can you do? Can you not see it's not enough?
Right.
Those things don't matter.
That. I can see that so much in her.
Yeah.
That's just a great example. Really.
And we should say we haven't prepared on this or worked on it.
No.
Or anything like that. This is all fresh, so I'm sure we're missing some stuff. But
yeah, we just came up with her right before we got started. And but it's so, it's so amazingly accurate. I can see this so much in her.
Mm-hmm.
And I had been working on her, but just astrologically for the course.
Yeah.
But, I never really looked at her cards, but this makes so much sense.
Well, the cards just give more color. I feel like astrology gives you so much too.
Yeah, they're wonderful.
Yeah. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, how we work out those planets and then their placements. So hopefully that made sense.
Yeah, it was great. I love
more to come. We'll see if Laura has time. We can talk. We can dig into the other aspects of numerology, nature. That's a nice one, major arcana. And we can look at kind of at the same chart and look through the lens of the other portions. And then the picture gets richer and richer and richer. So
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do another video on that. That would be amazing. I know a lot about the nature part and how they relate to the process of nature and rebirth and
and then maybe you can talk about that. I would love that, and then we can both kind of jump in and explore the nature portion of what goes in the cards of truth, because this you can use as a software, but you can also use with manual spreads, where you don't have to concentrate so much, but you still look at the planet portion and where that goes on one position. So it's still really, really useful to kind of look at what are the cards of truth and how are the planets kind of involved.
Oh,
thank you for the opportunity. I enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for coming on. This has been great. I've really learned a lot. I read it. I've been practicing with it, but it's so nice to hear your interpretation of it. It really is, you really went into it just beautifully.
Well, good, because I'm going to come to you for a Cards of Truth reading pretty soon here, because you are the astrologer specialist here.
I can test on you.
Yes, I can test on you. So lovely seeing you. Thank you so much, Laura.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mirela. I'll have you back soon.
Next time. Yes.
Okay.